I want to bring in some information. I want to bring in boundaries for the US, and I also want to bring in terrain data. Let's start with state boundaries. So I'm going to say state boundaries US shapefile. And one of the first things that should pop up is cartographic boundary shapefiles, and it's put out by the census in that same kind of tiger. It's a cartographic boundary shapefile. So I'm going to click this one here, and you can find it at the kind of the US Census's web page, Tiger Products here. And what I'm going to do is they have a few options. You can download the files. These are the actual kind of geographies on the ground. You can say, oh, I'm in a state and I want to get census tracts, block groups, all that kind of stuff. Or if you want the entire kind of nationwide set of data, they've got counties, congressional districts, regions, blah, blah, blah. But we're looking for state outlines, so I'm going to grab that. And when we get here, we see that we have these options. It says, what scale do you want? Kind of what level of detail is what it's really asking us. And I'll show you what that means in a second. I'm going to go back and look at the scale we're working at, and it looks like right around 15 million. So kind of, I think they know that, obviously, that if we're looking at the whole country, it's going to be closer to probably 1 to 20 million than it is 1 to 5 million. So let's try this one to start with. So download that. Let's do our normal kind of song and dance here. Put it in my Unit 5 folder. And I'm going to extract it. And when I go to look at it here, it's this first one. I can pull it in and I can see, very cool. So there's the United States. And so let's see what the other ones look like. I'm going to show you right now what the difference is between the different scales. And at the scale of 1 to 20 million, this shapefile works really well. But if we were to just make a map of the Chesapeake and the states around the Chesapeake, it looks a little kind of cartoonish, right? It's not very accurate. It's not very well drawn. But it's basic. It's a very small file, and for the whole country, we don't need that level of detail, right? But let's say we wanted to do something a little closer, just for the sake of kind of argument right now. Let's just see what the 1 to 500,000 looks like. What is that level of detail going to show us? So same thing, I'm going to drag that in my Unit 5. And when I go to look at this, let's see what it looks like when I put that 1 to 500,000 right on top. Better detail, eh? Check out the difference, right? Now you're kind of wondering, well, why don't we always have the most detailed thing? Well, if we use this highly detailed one at the scale of the country, sometimes you get these kind of dark crayon problems, is what I like to call them. If you try to color too much detail, it looks kind of like gunk. It's just all gunky, like up in Maine here around the Chesapeake. It's too much detail. The Mississippi bends around a lot in Louisiana and Arkansas, and you don't need that much detail to kind of represent that border. So it depends on how much you want to simplify. And simplification is important, especially when it comes to file size. These are both pretty simple shape files, so I don't really think it matters in this case. I think it's good to just kind of use whatever level of detail we are comfortable with. The one thing I would like, though, is I'd like to see Canada here and Mexico, because we don't just float out in the middle of the, we're not just floating on a white page. So now what I want to look for is, they're called global administrative areas. I might just say countries, shapefile, world. And one of the first things, again, that will pop up is global administrative areas, boundaries without limits. This is kind of a database of just many types of global administrative units all throughout the world. And it's very useful. I'd kind of like to just get the countries. A little bit of an easier way to get it is this website called Diva GIS right here. And you can Google that too, or just type in, www.diva-gis.org. And they provide a lot of free spatial data. And so if you can see that URL, I just clicked free spatial data. And they have a great global level kind of country boundaries. Of course, this is 2011, they're telling us. So, you know, if you're doing any mapping in more kind of politically volatile areas in the world, this is liable to change pretty frequently. But for our purposes in North America, the Mexican and Canadian border are pretty steady. So I'm going to say that we want this file right here. I'm going to download country boundaries. And it says countries _ shape. Extract as usual. Let me get rid of my zipped files because I don't need them. I'm going to shut these other ones off. It looks like it's even more detailed. It's got a lot of details. Look at that. I think that's attractive. I like that. So there's our countries file, and you can see that, you know, if we look at the whole world, we're in a kind of interesting projection right now, but we'll talk about that in the next video or two. So if we were to just try to kind of make a little map of our storms here, we can see, okay, there's the country, there's we've got the background boundaries of the countries. Let's use the more detailed state one. But if you're like me, you might be bothered right now because there are some places down here where the world shapefile and the state shapefile, the actual coastlines don't really match perfectly. It could be a datum issue, but it's also just a digitization issue, right? There are places that it's a different shape altogether. So what would be nice is if we could have this countries file and have only lines inside showing where the states are. We don't need a polygon file, right? The whole point of this polygon file is that it actually represents these areas, right? So that's Montana, that's Illinois, that's Texas, right? But if I had just this file with just a lines file on the inside, that way I can symbolize the countries however I want. I could even take away the border and then just only show kind of the lines inside the country. So I'm going to go ahead and download another useful file, especially when you're dealing with conflicting coastlines like that. And this file is going to be called US States Shapefile No Coasts. Okay, this is what I'm looking for right here. This person at Woods Hole came up with a good shapefile that I want you to know about. And it's the state boundaries that are the internal state boundaries. So let's just download it and I'll show you. You can read up about this right here if you want. But you should find it by either Google searching or just typing in Woods Hole internal US state boundaries. Google that. And then the metadata is all right here that you can look at. But this online link is right here. If we click usgs.gov, blah, 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 we can just download the zip file right there. And I'm going to show you why that's useful. Extract. And now when we look at this, let's bring that one in. It's called state bounds. Aha. So what I'm trying to get at here is that this is a line file, right? The inner boundaries of the states are being represented by lines, right? There are no polygons. If I click this, it's going to select. It looks like it's breaking it up between different regions of lines, right? Where are the lines all interconnected? So the reason this is good is because when you get coastline issues like up here, right, or down here where it all looks kind of gross, it'd be nice if we could just do this, and I'm going to do it right now. Change the countries so that maybe they're all one color and they are like let's just make it a gray, but then there's no border. Let's just say no border, right? And so now what we have is we have a much cleaner looking coast, and we can make this represent our inner boundary of the states, and we don't have to even deal with the polygon or conflicting coastline shapefiles. So I like this so far. Let's just stick with this. I like the countries on the bottom and the state bounds as lines, and I don't think we even need these census state shapefiles. I think I'm going to stick with what I got. So I'm going to remove these. And all that might seem like a lot of work, but you have to fuss around a bit, right? I think that if we tried to symbolize our boundaries with the polygons, we're going to get the coasts are going to look too gross. I like it when there's no kind of stroke, or what we would say is outline of the polygons. I like it when it's just a polygon and then the background. So that's my opinion. Cool. Okay. Before things get too complicated, what I'm going to do is organize my folder a little bit. I've got a lot of things going on here. So I'm going to go, I'm going to call this boundaries, and I'll put all of my boundary data into my boundaries folder, like that. I'm going to make another folder called DEM, because we're going to go online now and find our relief model. Okay. Go ahead and Google search NOAA Global Relief, and you'll find this eTopo 1 Global Relief, and that's what we're looking for. And you might remember this is actually the same website. We can just bring it back right to ngdcnoaa.gov, and we went on one of our first labs, we went to bathymetry and global relief here, and then the extract custom grids, kind of the same way. And what it gives us is this kind of giant sandbox that we get to play around in, and we say what we want. Before, we'd been using the coastal relief models, which were limited to US coastal waters, and we made a coastal bathymetry map of Maine. In this case, we're using eTopo 1 bedrock, and all that means is that these two data sets, one considers that the ice is included in the elevation, and this is the bedrock model, kind of like where, regardless of ice and superficial material, where's the elevation kind of above the datum. So I want to do bedrock. I think that's going to work good. Okay, and so I'm going to go up to my select by rectangle up here, and this is kind of a tricky tool. It's messed me up a few times as I try to get this video ready. Don't try to download a huge area, and also be careful near the polar regions. I'm just going to grab from right near kind of Vancouver Island, just this swath right here that goes down maybe a little bit towards Mexico. Maybe I'll get a little bit more than that. I want the area surrounding the U.S., but not the whole continent. So I'm just going to try that and see how that goes. Okay. And when I download it, it should start to download here. Yeah, and if you see that it's taking a while to download, that should be pretty good, because it's a big file. Okay. There we go.